15th meeting of the Health and Education Committee. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. All right, Health Department, Ms. Carey.
Hello, see you again. Okay, I bring my May report to you guys for review. Our clinic numbers are right where we would expect them to be at this time of year. We have continued to do some tobacco outreach and cessation awareness programs that we talked about last month, and we have some this month's dental screenings we did at Mitchell Nelson. And you can see we did quite a few screenings and sealants, fluoride treatments, and 22 were referred on for further dental care.
Any questions for Ms. Garrett about the report?
Ask you a quick question. Ms.
Yes,
Garrett.
sir.
You said your numbers are about where you would expect them.
Yes,
Are they
sir.
higher than last year?
No, we're right about where we are. There's a couple of things that have played into that. Some of our professional staff, APMs and dentists, those kinds of things have been on like FMLA, so that'll make our numbers fluctuate a little. So we have a couple of goals that we set for increases in certain things like well child exams while they're there and all that. So we have seen those mile markers hit, those ones that we did want to increase, but some like dental will be a little lower than we had planned for because of staffing things like that.
Is that overall trend, like 4 or 5 years, is up?
Yes,
Considerably?
steady or up, depending on the program. Some of our primary care has been steady, and then like programs like family planning and women's health and well child exams are up. You know, some of our communicable diseases are steady or growing, you know, and that's testing wise, what we're testing for and how many encounters we do for that. So it's not a trend that it shows we've got more, we're just doing more testing.
When those numbers go up, does the state allow your budget to go up?
Yes, so partly we're funded by the state and partly funded by the county, and they do, we put in requests for additional positions and things like that. So over the last couple of years, we have gotten a full-time registered dietitian that we were sharing with Wilson County, and now we have it full-time. We got a new health education position. So they have been responsive to our request for additional staff to help us meet those growing numbers and goals.
Move to approve the report.
Second.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Tuberculosis, I see it's up from previous year of almost 100 cases.
Yes, yes. So
Is there
we
a
are.
reason?
Well, we're just seeing a lot of both that is latent cases, which are cases that are not active but need to be treated before they could activate, and then that's also cases with active. So we are seeing more of those cases. Doctors are referring to us because we're kind of an expert, and if you're a primary care doctor, you might not be comfortable doing that, so they're referring more to us. So we also have started having clinic in our building where we're seeing patients that need further follow-up for tuberculosis, so that will increase the number. So not necessarily a huge increase in the rate in our county, but definitely a larger increase in the number of people coming through the clinic for services.
If there's no more questions, we'll take a vote. All in favor to approve?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
And then
Yes.
while you're moving on to your next item, though, I will just say sort of an FYI for folks, if you have a freshman who needs a meningitis vaccine,
Yes.
not all, a freshman entering college, not all primary care physicians can store the vaccines appropriately, so they don't offer them. So I was recently referred to the health department, and
Yes.
we had a very successful experience.
Okay,
So I just want to say
good.
thank you for that. But so if anybody, if your freshman needs a meningitis vaccine. It's an excellent resource.
Yes, absolutely. And we do those every day, 8 to 10, 1 to 3, no appointment, just walk in at both our sites, so, yes.
Preschool, physical, and school immunizations too.
Yes, yes, that's exactly right. We'll be ramping up for that for the 1st of August to get ready for that soon. The next thing I have to bring to you is just our annual contract that we have with the state. I sent this to Mrs. Nolan and reviewed it, and it is accurate of what we have written in our budget plan. So it's just the contract that they need signed for them.
Doesn't come till August usually.
I
or
know.
October. Why-
I know.
It's here so early.
I'm so
It's
surprised.
here before the start date.
Yes, exactly.
17 we're
exactly.
dealing with now? We're usually at least a year
I know, so
behind.
I know,
Yeah.
but we're not. This will be the current one.
I know.
So,
Amazing.
yeah, well,
That's fantastic.
yeah. So, you know, the tobacco money changed a little bit. We talked about that in our meeting, and so they'll probably amend this down the road just to get that straightened out. But basically, I know how much I have in there to spend until we get it completely straightened out. So,
Any questions, Ms. Garrett? We'll entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
do you need the contract? Okay. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your support.
Thank you. And there's there's a notice of audit report on here. Is that just FYI for our
For me.
information? It was under
Oh.
yours, yeah?
Oh, I think that's just part of the contract.
Okay,
It's
so
one of
just
the
a second
pages.
Of the
Yeah.
PDF that didn't get added?
Yes, I think there was 2 PDFs.
Gotcha.
Like it wouldn't scan all together.
Very good.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
And then, Ms. Garrett, just for your information, I know we normally do not meet in July. At this point,
Right.
we may still have a July meeting.
Okay.
So keep it on your calendar and we'll let
Okay.
you know if it cancels.
Okay, thank you.
Community care report, we've actually got 2 of those. The May minutes, I don't think we had those last time. Excuse me. May 10th and June 7th. You got the June 7th one on your iPad?
Yes. Things are going real good. We're talking about remodeling some out there, and community care can afford the bill. So it's, the last paragraph, you'll see that it's $978,000. That doesn't include furniture and so forth. And Dr. Smith's, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Smith's nurse practitioner is still covering for us.
Very
So we're doing good.
good. Terrific. All right.
So moved.
For both months, May and June?
Yeah.
All right, can we get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. All right, school projects report. Are you Miss Jelly tonight?
Yes, I am. Okay, so the report in front of you, there's really nothing
You can
exciting. There you go. Exciting to talk about.
You need it.
No, I'd go from here. Well, I had it on here too. So, no new projects to put on. It's just a continuation.
Just paying bills, sorry.
Just paying bills. Just keeping up with these projects. We got a lot of them. Takes a while for these things to get paid down.
On page number 2, the bottom of it says future new secondary project. What's that?
On page 2,
Yeah.
page 2, I don't have,
It's on page 4 of the
oh, thank you,
iPad.
page 4, because I was going to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
Page, future elementary projects, is that the one,
New
7
second-
million?
New secondary, future new secondary.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh, you're on that one. Okay.
Well, that page.
That page, I was back in here. That's just money left over from projects, and so that would be high school money not shared.
Thank you.
It's available to be used.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Nolan? We'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Excellent job. Ms.
Thank
Ryan will
you.
be very proud.
I got my cues from her.
Board of Education, come on up. And this is Mr. Odom's last meeting with us.
It is, isn't it?
Oh my goodness.
That's sad.
Yes, congratulations on
Well, thank you.
a 50-year fantastic career.
Well,
Time well spent. I saw him earlier at his party and I hugged his neck and told him I would say congratulations, but I don't mean it. So I'll just say, okay. But he's definitely earned it, so
Yeah.
we appreciate you.
it put a smile on your face after a while.
Point of order, this will be Mr. Carney's last meeting with us also.
Official meeting, he has a 120-day contract, so we'll see his face again.
I don't know if that's going to involve him being in front of us or not.
Well, he had planned to not be in front of us tonight, but I saw him at the meeting, was persuaded him that he needed to be here, so. Yeah. And then welcome Mr. Spurlock. He knows he has big shoes to fill, so he's still watching and learning, yeah. Very good.
Are we ready?
We're ready.
Okay. And did I hear correctly that we can kind of handle the general purpose amendments
Yeah.
probably together, but cafeteria?
But the
and-
budget will have to handle separate. Next year's budget will be separate.
Okay,
And then
so
the
the first
capital
page,
GPS amendments we can handle together.
140, yeah, Funds 141, we can do together.
Okay, the Fund 141 is the 2018-19 general purpose school budget revisions with some changes from the state. We have 4 changes to 2018-19 general purpose school budget that increase both revenues and offsetting expenditures. The total increase is $393,065 in grant revenues, $15,000 in IEA accounts, and a state flow-through payment. These changes were mentioned at our joint meeting with Health and Education Committee and the Commission's Budget Committee. We've been awarded 2 voluntary pre-K grant classrooms. Our total increase for voluntary pre-K is $266,145. Our career and technical education grant has been adjusted down from $3,847 based on the degree and experience of our new employee. We are budgeting $115,767 in a state flow-through payment for internet connectivity and offsetting expenses. The state has changed the account for the individual education accounts and $15,000 in basic education programs IEA revenue will offset the $15,000 expenditure. In account number 71-200-595, the BEP IEA payments. There's been one other change which may not be on yours now. We will have a new account number for coordinated school health, 46-591. You know, next year is supposed to be the first year under the Every Student Succeeds Act, the federal requirement, that there's a cost per pupil at each school. So that breakdown is going to be one of the most misunderstood things because of differences in your school. But the state's changing some numbers where they can do a better job, I think, of tracking is driving some of this. The net effect of all these changes on the funding of the budget is zero, since the revenues equal the expenditures. There's also more account changes at the request of the State Department of Education. $20,000 in contract service has been shifted from 71-200 special education to 72-220 special education program, and additional contract service accounts are being used in both functions. 4 special ed educational assistants have been reclassified as regular ed EAs, and a 5th reclassified as a preschool educational assistant. The other change moves $25,000 in contract services from 72-410 Office of the Principal to 72-510 Accounting for Accounts Payable Document Management Service. The motion that we would recommend would be to approve the 2018-19 general purpose school budget with $373,176,547 in revenues, $388,098,875 in expenditures, and funding the $14,922,328 difference from the unassigned general purpose school budget as presented.
And the next page is 141.
Okay, we got another one. That's
This needs to be a
17-18.
separate vote.
It's 17-18,
Yeah.
so it may need to be here.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Odom?
I would like to say, with these final amendments and all that, I'm very glad to be able to say our actual revenues for 2017-18 will be greater than our actual expenses because of growth in revenues and all that. That's excluding the $4.4 million we've transferred to the building program.
Okay.
But in operations, in our actual numbers coming in, we will not be we will not have a deficit.
Do you think that'll trend for?
Who knows?
Well, you know, we started with 7 million,
Yeah.
you know, for
Mhm.
million
Yeah.
fund balance. But
Yeah.
watching expenditures
Yeah.
and
Right.
some unexpected revenues, you know, out of this amount of monies, that's, you just have to watch it.
It makes me feel better about our 14.9
Right, that's- yeah,
for
that's
next
what it
year.
is.
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Okay, we're ready. Again, this is Fund 141, but for the 2017-18 General Purpose School Amendments, the closeout amendments. This amendment has $550,189 in program-specific revenues and offsetting expenditures of $368,793 is an E-rate revenue that is related to our technology expenditures. $140,758 of this amount will be transferred to Fund 189, the school building fund, because the related expenditures were in that fund. $13,504 is to record our special education individual education accounts. $52,125 in a special grant for the governor's preschool for new curriculum materials. $115,767 is for internet connectivity because the state has changed its reimbursement method for this service. So one motion there would be to amend the 2017-18 general purpose school budget by $550,189 in program-specific revenues and the offsetting expenditures as presented. The B section is a year-end revenue amendment. This amendment revises 2017-18 revenues based upon our most recent estimates. It increases net revenues and unassigned fund balance by $2,851,346. Our opening unassigned fund balance should be between 3.5% and 4.0% of the 2018-19 general purpose school budget after using the $14,922,328 to balance the budget. That's pretty good too. Now we're looking at 4, we were looking at 3 when we had our meeting. Recommend motion is to amend the general purpose school budget by $3,316,868 and increases to the 2017-18 revenues, $465,522 in decreases to the 2017-18 revenues, and to increase unassigned fund balance by $2,851,346 as presented. And C is year-end expenditure amendment. This amendment reallocates a total of $687,476 in already budgeted expenditures to the lines where they're needed. Some of the lines adjust staff to cover potential shortages, no new positions being added. The first one would be special education, $71,200, additional account changes from the state, and coding corrections for 4 educational assistants. Under technology is $72,250 is non-labor adjustments within the function. The Director of Schools, $72,320, operating expenditure funds for staff members moved to this function last year per the state requirement. Plan operations, $72,610, non-labor adjustments within the function, and maintenance, $72,620, non-labor adjustments within the function. The recommended motion is to amend the 2017-18 general purpose school budget by $687,476 in already budgeted expenditures to the lines where they're needed as presented.
Any questions on that one? We'll entertain a motion.
You want me to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve A, B, and C as read.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes. Okay. 143.
Okay, 143 is again in 2017-18. This is under the centralized cafeteria amendment. This is a 2017-18 cleanup amendment for the centralized cafeteria fund. Net revenues are being reduced by $720,288. Net expenditures are being reduced by $457,180. And restricted for school nutrition fund balance, account 34,570 is being decreased by $263,108. Recommended motion is to reduce the net revenues by $720,288 and to reduce net expenditures by $457,180 and reduce restricted for school nutrition fund balance account 34,570 by $263,108 in Fund 143, the centralized cafeteria fund as presented.
Why did that one come up short?
We just haven't had the revenues come in. Yeah, and some of that and some of the increased expenditures are because we had so many inclement weather days.
We'll need to take 143 and 177 separately, so we'll need a motion for this one.
So
I move
moved.
approved.
Second.
Who was your motion?
You have to do this one.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Okay, Fund 177, 2718 Capital Projects Fund Amendment. This amendment cleans up the projected 2017-18 revenues and expenditures in the Capital Projects Fund 143. An additional $137,245 in net revenues will increase committed for capital projects, their fund balance, by the same amount, $121,345 in already budgeted maintenance and repair expenditures is being moved to engineering services, and $3,203 in other contracted services, $118,142. So the recommended motion is to amend the Capital Projects Fund with an additional $137,245 in net revenues to increase account 34,685, Committee for Capital Projects by that same $137,245, and to move $3,203 to engineering services and $118,142 other contracted services from already budgeted maintenance repair expenditure as presented.
Move to approve. Second.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
And last-
Took the land?
Yep, now we're gonna talk about
Okay. Y'all know I like data since my last meeting. Here, I'm gonna share something with you today. Taking a look at this, if you'll kind of pass one around, it just kind of shocks me when I look at what's happening kind of in Rutherford County. This is from the Census Bureau. I actually pulled it today. But I'll wait till everybody kind of gets one, and then we'll talk kind of about the land, why we want to look to the future, why are we doing this sort of thing to look at. If you look at that sheet, again, they said the population census in April 1st, 2010 for Rutherford County, and this is specific to Rutherford County, was 262,604. Look at the top, then you see their estimate for July 1st, 2016 was 308,251. That's running about 8,000 new people a year in our population growth. And then I found what I really found interesting, going from 2016 to 2017, July 1, that's almost a 9,000 increase. So you've got, so many years we have in a row here that we're looking at 8,000 to 9,000 increase. I mean, it's staying in that particular pattern for us. So it looks like all of those early projections that they were saying for Rutherford County are kind of holding. Be interesting what July 1, 2018 is now on it, when they post that out, what they would estimate it. So looking then at some land for future schools, the school board has been looking for parcels of land in 3 areas of the county for future school sites. We've narrowed our focus to 4 possible sites and are asking for county commission approval so that we can move forward with land purchase for future schools. Our $10,300,000 request includes a total of $360,000 in funding for soil testing, environmental wastewater treatment compatibility, and appraisal, etc., at $120,000 per site. These services will be performed before the board's final vote and before the county commission is asked to appropriate funds for a specific school complex. Mr. Jeff Reed, the board attorney, is going to draw up any contracts and handle the closing. This is a potential motion that our board passed, was to request the county commission to appropriate $10.3 million for the purchase of multiple school sites, which will be available to the board subject to the board obtaining acceptable prices, terms, and inspection reports. One of the things that we're seeing with 8,000 more people to 9,000 coming in each year, we're not saying build another school today, but the choices and the places to find land is really becoming an issue for us. So the area we have looked at is really north 231. We're looking down 96 west back towards 840, and that area's growth. Mr. Trey Lee, who's on the Smyrna Planning Commission and also kind of taking Mr. Carter's place, was talking about last night some 3,000 lots that had been approved, and they're beginning to move on it in that area. And the other ones would be a choice over here in an area that you talked before, somewhere on the southeast, kind of in the Christiana area. We look at Rockville Middle School, and we look at Rockville Elementary, we look at Christiana Elementary, Christiana Middle. We're so full there that we need to be able to look in the future, what can we do for a school complex there? We as we went Saturday and looked at the sites again, one of the things that the reason we're doing it now is to try to hit your August borrowing cycle. Because we realize if we do not hit that cycle, we're going to be 12 to 18 months before another borrowing cycle. Another thing that's showing up is we're now seeing a rise in interest rates. And that was, it stayed stable quite a bit from the 2008 and so, but as the Federal Reserve is beginning to raise that interest rate, if we wait 18 months or another year, when you go out for bid, to bid for these schools, how much? Is it going to be 0.5%? Is it going to be 1%? Or what would it be? I don't know. But it kind of begins to, another thing that Mr. Phillips brought up too, they're building the subdivisions out in other parts of the county now. We're seeing it certainly coming out of Murfreesboro too in the other areas, that if we need some roads or if we need to look at that traffic pattern and all, knowing where we will be putting a school somewhere out in the future, that gives us a little more time to look at how we can manage that, or how we could budget that. So we're not looking necessarily at additional sites, but some of you got a chance to look at some of those sites. We're not looking necessarily at other ones, but we need a little more time to look at floodwater plains, 100-year floodwater areas. We need a little bit more time to look at soil, because all of those would require a step system. So we've got to check that amount, I mean how much we can handle, how many students that would accommodate. Mr. Clardy has done a little bit of research, and what he's hearing now, the soil testing people are out 60, 90 days or something, so nothing is going to happen really quickly. But you know, my recommendation, I mean, not only as director of school, but kind of as a citizen, we need to try to get in front of this. The only other site we've got remaining for a school really now is your Whitworth Buchanan High School. You know, when we purchased enough there, we purchased for the middle school, we added a few acres to it for the high school. So the other process is be adding in other places, which we're adding, of course, currently now at Oakland Middle School. Certainly finishing up with Smyrna Middle School, opened Rocky Fork this year. But I don't see the district coming back next year and say, hey, let's need another school right at this time. But as we look at it again this fall and we look at enrollment, our enrollment is pretty consistently saying from 1,000 to 1,200 new students per year. That's kind of what we're seeing out of that 8,000 or 9,000. And that's held for a number of years now. The only time that changes much is if the city happens to build a new elementary school over a period of time, then sometimes we'll see a little drop that year when people that live in that particular area. But it appears to me to be good management sense to think about, let's begin the paradigm of looking down the road a few years and see where we may need schools. And we've chosen, again, 3 corridors, kind of southeast, kind of the northern area, and back to the west and southwest. So that when we have to have a school, we will have the land to kind of go forward with. But be happy to try to answer any questions from Mr. Clardy here, but that's kind of our recommendation to you.
You have a map to where these properties are located?
One of the properties we looked at is really kind of in the south around Miller Road.
That was from Saturday.
Thank you.
And that's ones where we do have some floodplain potential issues and placement and all, so we'd like to do some more. That, rather than coming and naming you 3 very specific sites tonight, we just need to do more, we need to do the smart thing and do some more study. You do. I mean, we don't need to make a mistake if we're gonna purchase land. The other one, again, is off of 96. The other one is really in the Walter Hill area north of 231, Cutoff Road. I mean, how many houses was it in Cutoff and all that been built? You mentioned the other
There
one.
was a big subdivision up there, 250, 300, something like that, you know?
Most of these buildings, I'm guessing 90% of them now are planned unit developments where we're putting a tremendous amount of houses on
Yes, sir.
smaller pieces of property. It's a good use of the property that we have left in Rutherford County, but it's also creating some aggravation out in the county itself. You're talking about some property right off of 231.
Right.
Is it beyond the Christiana School?
In the south, and we're really talking more between Christiana and Buchanan, kind of off of Miller Road in some areas in there.
269.
Miller Road's the second page.
And I think there's the picture of the map, what they're looking at. There was a couple of pieces of property there. One may be more desirable than the other.
That's where most of the development has happened this year, is out 231 towards Shelbyville.
We just can't add to Christiana anymore. That's our problem.
The complaints that we're getting from the residents of that area is mostly from school crowding. So residents don't want us to approve any more new buildings because of the overcrowding situation. So in essence, your plan is to, at some point in time, build out the Christiana area in that
Yes.
general area, and that would be a 3-school complex.
Gary, what we talked about we talked about up to 3-school complex in that area. Yes.
And one of the biggest considerations is that the board has asked us to start including road planning. So if we can get enough property that we have to build on where we're anticipating growth for 12 to 15 years out, then that gives us the lead time that we would need to try to figure out how to address the road issue in a lot of those areas and help the overcrowding on the road. So,
One of the attractive things was us, as we talked about this, that if we did the 3 parcels of property, we might not be back to the commission for a dozen years trying to buy property again. Now, at some point in that span, you're gonna have to maybe have a school or a building, but we may not find ourselves competing for the small amount of land again. It's just trying to get in front of this. You either get in front of it or you kind of get run over by it. I mean, that's where we are.
Do we have options? Are we committed to buy this property?
No, we have not issued any options yet. We're still studying. That's what we need to do by looking at floodplains. Of course, if we do any options to buy, it has to come after the drilling, will it handle a step system? That's what we got.
That's my question. How optimistic are you about, on these parcels that, I went Saturday and Louis looked at these, and to me, they're somewhat problematic on all, well, at least two of them, as far as finding enough good soil to,
They,
of course, I know drilling will tell the answer.
a
but-
couple of them may be problematic, but they're in the particular location that we need. So we'd like to just do some due diligence and see. And
How
that's one-
much it will, whether it'll accommodate one school, two schools, three schools, or what.
To go ahead and send a letter of intent
Right.
and then do our due diligence and based on the contingency, if everything is acceptable, then we would proceed to bring all of that back to you, to the school board, to you, and then go to closing with it if it's approved.
I think we're gonna get to a point where we may have to get away from the three-school concept. I like it. People like it, but I'm just not sure, unless some of the cities really extend sewer on out into some of these areas where a step system is no longer required. And because what I saw Saturday, I think we're probably shooting 50-50 on finding enough, definitely no more than 50-50 on a couple of those parcels to find a step system capable of handling 3 schools. Now, we might find enough land to handle 1 school, or 2 schools, but
And that's
that's what you're going to answer with your
That's the
due diligence.
reason we don't want it to set it in stone.
Right.
And then have to back out and do a bunch of different.
Right.
We want to do our due diligence and make sure that we're on solid footing if we
So the
proceed.
10 million that you're asking for tonight, 10.3 million, will include funding for all of the due diligence, which you would expect to spend fairly quickly, as soon as possible, and then get back on the purchasing.
Yes.
Mayor, you had something to add?
Yeah, I concur with the need to go ahead and identify property that we can have in our inventory to use properly as time goes by. All of us, a few of us that are looking around at the price of this land and the scarcity of it, is pretty evident that the price is going to continue to really go up. I just want us to be sure we do 2 or 3 things in this due diligence process. First of all, I think the $10 million that you're talking about, or 10.3, mentioned this to Lisa, I mean, we can put that in the bond issue, and she can craft this language whereby this money could be used for land or buildings or otherwise. So you would have a couple of years to be able to make this, to find your land if you can find it and it meets all of your requirements. So I don't think that would be a complication. But I think we really need to, and I know you, the board and all of the staff have already done some things to determine this is the right place exactly. But I'd like to see us do a little bit more homework on population projections in a specific area. I'd like to see a little bit of additional consulting quote kind of input there. And secondly, some of these places you're talking about need some serious review about whether the roads are going to have substantial major improvements for you to properly use those and from a safety standpoint. So those 2 things in particular really need to be focused on as far as your due diligence. And of course, we know about the soil problem. That's an issue that has to be addressed specifically. So I think what all they're really wanting us to do is say we concur with the need to do this, and let them do their homework specifically, maybe in more detail than they've even done so far, and then bring that back to their board, and then they would have to bring it back to the commission before there's any money actually appropriated or used out of your pool of money that you set aside in the bond issue.
For specific sites. We would see the specific sites before they go.
I think we understand that.
Right.
It's getting harder and harder to find these sites. You can look at the map, see the projection of where the growth's coming, but if not, there won't be a suitable piece of property or an available piece of property within 4 or 5 miles. And all of a sudden, the piece of property that is available doesn't fit the projection. So you're dealing with the perfect world of going out on a map and saying, right here at this corner But then actually we're dealing with the reality of it. There's no property there available, or the people there don't want to sell it, or it's already in houses or whatever. So
Well, I also.
I do agree we ought to get some property in inventory because prices are going up. And we probably should have done it during the downturn 7 or 8 years ago when prices were cheaper. But then people were saying don't spend money we don't have, but
It's a
I think-
paradigm shift for
I
us.
think 5 years from now,
to
we'll be
think
saying,
ahead
if we don't,
like
why
this.
didn't the county buy property when it was only X number of dollars per acre, where it is increasingly going up and there's no end in sight to this exponential increase in price.
We don't have that crystal ball, but you know all these things, but you're talking about this, we're not the only ones that's looking for this land either. There was a gentleman the other day over here off of 96 at the McDonald's, and he was asking folks there where you're from, and if you were from the Rockville area, he said, do you know of any property? He had come in here from California, and he was checking the Rockville area and the Nolensville area, looking for different pieces of property. And he said on their studies that they had found these were going to be 2 of the hottest areas in this area out this direction. So he's out here looking for property, and he come all the way from California looking for property. So we're not the only ones that are looking. There are other people that are looking, so.
From a timing standpoint, I also think it's important to note that we're about to launch the process to update our major thoroughfare plan. And so as we update that major thoroughfare plan, knowing where these future schools are going to go would help direct road improvements and access and things like that. So I think the timing of that, of knowing this before that plan is complete, is really advantageous. And I also like the security of knowing that even though we authorize the funds and the borrowing at this point, this committee will still have an opportunity to review each site before the contract is finalized. I think that gives us a level of reassurance as well.
The due diligence that we keep talking about is basically on these properties that are listed here. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
So we're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars doing tests on property that we may not buy.
That's correct.
That happens every time, though.
We've been doing that for
Unless you're building where you got a sewer system connect.
But most of the time, don't we have some type of contract, some type of agreement to buy before we do all this? I'm just wondering if we're putting the cart before the horse. We're saying we're going to set this money aside, and then we're going to go out and test it, and all of a sudden it's perfect. Okay, let's build it on there. And the buyer said, well, good, I'm jacking the price up.
What
Well,
we've
we'll
done,
have a letter of intent from each. We'll have an
Yes.
option on this
Yeah,
property
basically,
before we spend the money.
contingent
I
on,
just asked you a while ago, do we have an option? And the
we
answer was no.
don't yet, but as we move forward, we would move into that process. We don't yet.
If you approve the monies and as we
Yeah.
do the additional.
As
You'll have an option
the
before you
testing-
You have
spend
an
any
option
money.
before you
Yeah.
do the drilling.
Yeah.
But I think before we get an option, 2 or 3 of these key things need to be done first. At a couple of these places, I don't live out in that particular area, but the roads are a major concern as to their ability to even manage all the additional traffic that would be there. So I think some of those things we ought to pretty much get our minds straight, that this is okay, we can fix the roads, or we got a commitment to fix them. The other land is there, I'm not questioning that at all. So some of those things, and is that going to be an area where this 8,000 or 9,000, their heavy percentage of growth is going to occur? Let's be sure that's happening.
I think we need to engage if it's a county road, we need to engage the road superintendent and see what it's going to cost. I know when I was working over in Williamson County, we were going to build a communications tower on a particular piece of land that the state had given us. They'd bought several years prior for a fire tower. When we found out what it was going to cost to build a road to that, it was 3 or 4 times what the communications tower was going to cost. So it's going to be somewhere $600,000 or $700,000 to build a road of a half-mile distance because of the topography. So we need to probably engage the highway department to begin to see what kind of cost we're going to incur, where that's going to happen. Is it a state road? 269 is a state road. At least one of these parcels is right off of 269, So I think that's very much the case. before we spend a lot of money. But I agree, we need to be looking ahead.
Of course, these guys have been doing this, especially Mr. Clardy, for some time.
Right.
And I know they brought these 4 properties forward, and just the amount of experience they've got doing this, in my opinion, I feel pretty comfortable not gonna bring something down some pig path you can't get a school bus down. I mean, they've got more experience than to do that, you know.
We went out and looked at them Saturday, and some of them are.
The toughest is really in the Christiana area
Right.
because, you know, you're off 231 North, State Highway,
Right.
pretty good in the Walter Hill area, off 96, and even one of the properties we're looking at there even goes back down Little Road. Could even go to Shores Road. You could have up to 3 exits from that one. The issue is back here, but I don't know how to solve like what you're talking about out there because we don't have a major state road connecting 70, you know, and out in that whole arc. It's all county roads.
It's a dilemma, and as I thank you for remembering the communication that I gave you last fall, that I'm not going to approve anything else unless there is a comprehensive impact as to what those schools would mean to that area and the roads that are there. We can't get, and citizens are clamoring every day about getting from point A to point B, no matter where it is. Smyrna, Laverne, Murfreesboro, even Eagleville. And it's a major problem now, and we're not reacting to it. 20 years from now, I may not be around. I'm at that age to where 20 years, I may not be around, but I still care. And it has to be part of that plan. Even if it's costing the county to build new roads or to expand new roads, it has to be part of that plan. So, and I concur with what Will said, but the whole issue is not just land. It's how do we access that land and how do we get our kids from point A to point B. And it's a major concern. And I look at it every month as part of the Planning Commission. Every month. And I hear complaints every month, criticisms every month for us approving lots. How can you do this? How can you do this? And there's no way to stop it.
Right.
We have no tools to even slow it down. So the tool that we have before us right now has to be a joint effort with the school board. So if you're going to build schools, we're going to have to use that particular development to improve our road structure. And it's going to have to be part of the cost. And it's going to be sky high. But at some point in time, we've got to bite that bullet and figure it out.
Mr. Stevens, by doing this, there's a couple of these pieces that it actually gives us the latitude to negotiate on the price, knowing that we have the money, and before we enter into a letter of intent with them. So, just for the record, we'd negotiate the price, we'd enter into a letter of intent and a contract with a contingency. We can, we've got enough money in there with that $120,000 to do an impact study on the area. We can do the things that's part of what the mayor wanted us to take a look at, was the population in the area. And that impact study would also direct us towards what road improvements we would have to do for the volume of traffic. We would do all of our soil testing, our structural soil testing, our absorption rates, all of those types of things to make sure that we could have the appropriate wastewater treatment on site. We would, if the land is questionable as to the price, by our feel and what we see, then we would do an appraisal on the property also. to make sure that it's, priced appropriately. And so this cost would also do the closing. There would be funds in there for the closing on that piece of property. So we certainly don't want to bring you something that's not going to work. So we're going to do our homework to make sure that we don't run our credibility when we bring something up here to you.
I appreciate you guys being really candid with me. It chokes me to think about $10.5 million for a piece of property. We built a 3-school Blackman complex for a little over $50 million. And now we're talking about $80 million for one high school.
And people were outraged at the price we paid for that land at the time.
So,
Of course, this could potentially house 8 or 9 schools.
Right.
Yeah.
Between these
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
properties, you know.
Yeah.
I concur with it.
Yeah.
I do. And getting ahead of the curve, I think is a good thing. But my concerns deal with, is this the best piece of property for us to build on? Or could we pay a little more for a piece of property and not have to do all that infrastructure work? So I'll just leave it into your guys' hands.
The thing that caught my attention Saturday was the size of the property we have to have for a school. Now, that's the thing. We're looking at 120 acres on most of these, in most situations. And then you get down to just building an elementary, you have to have, what, 32 acres? Is that right? Or somewhere
Well,
in
it
there?
depends on if it has sewer available.
That's what I
We
mean.
have-
When you stick in the step system, you have to increase the amount of acreage you got to have. So to find those acreages and those plots to be exactly what you need for a school, it's the old Easter egg hunt. And find them exactly as we talked about, to find the location with the roads and what you've got to have to move the traffic and get where it's going. I'm amazed you find these like this. And then on top of that, you've got to get the price that you're talking about to get these in a seller's market. We were over here at the forum the other night for the NAACP. One of the questions he asked is, how do you provide affordable housing in a seller's market? And if you try to answer a question, try to answer that one. Well, we're doing the same thing with trying to build schools. We're in a seller's market right now and trying to find exactly how we do that. I used to buy a flip phone for, I guess, $90. That's an Apple smartphone. That thing's almost $1,000 when you go out here and try to get these things. I mean, that's the society we're in.
$5.
Yeah, I've heard how you've been talking here. But that's what I see what you're dealing with when you get out there and ride in these vans on a Saturday morning out here looking at these pieces of property and you see what's out there. The thing surprised me, we found a piece of property that had 800 acres in it. I didn't know there was still a field with 800 acres. That just blew me away that we found an 800-acre field with soybeans in it, Will.
Rutherford County?
And Rutherford County, and Christiana out that way. And, but locating these places, I'm amazed at what you're talking about there. And we were in 3 white vans, and yesterday morning I had people say, were y'all looking at property, and can you tell me where you were, and what were you looking at? And I said, if I tell you where we were, we might have to do something about it. But yeah, I understand the whole situation, what you're talking about.
We can dislike the price of property and the price to build schools and all, but short of something unforeseen happening, we're going to have to put kids somewhere. Short of starting a night shift or whatever, we're going to have to continue to build schools. And I do like getting enough property. I'll believe it when I see it. If this will be the last property you'll need for 12 years. Because I say in 5 or 6 years, somebody will be up here talking to whoever's over here. It won't be me, it won't be you, and it won't be you, but about, hey, we didn't foresee this growth. because that 1,200 students a year is going to become
Absolutely.
1,500 students a year, it's going to become 1,800 students a year. And
If that 800-acre soybean field turns into houses, that would be a solution in
we
itself.
haven't talked much about Walter Hill, but as that landfill closes, there's still some property out that way that hadn't developed because nobody wanted to live around the smell of the landfill. But as that goes away and the proximity to the town, it's gonna catch fire again out there in that vicinity.
I think you brought up something then that people don't really like to talk about, but I've brought it up several times over the last couple of years. At some point in time, I think we're going to have to look, and I know it's been studied 12, 13, 14 years ago, at is there any alternative to scheduling or facility utilization to reduce the rapid building of schools and so on because of the capital budget? Yes, it increases the operating budget. The capital budget is something. So I guess, Mr. Spurlock, you're going to be the one sitting here in the future. I'll keep hitting on that.
Well,
because
funny you should mention that. We have discussed, and I will be looking at attending something to look at that. Now, if you look at all your research now, a lot of them that have went to that have withdrawn from it because there's more things that impact it other than money. But we will look at it.
I think the most favorable thing I've seen has been a hybrid system, where because we're getting schools close enough together now, and so on. But I'm not saying that's the end all. I'm not saying that that's. I just think it's something that we should take another look at, because the way we were 14, 15 years ago is not the way we were. You just pointed out from the population growth, it's not the same county that we were 14 or 15 years ago. So there's
I think it's going to be very important to look at how to minimize the property, minimize the footprint of the building, but maximize the occupancy of the building. And it's going to be a very difficult thing to do over the next 15 years. But who knows, you may have to start entertaining ideas like building multi-story buildings. I mean, there's all kind of things that need to be looked at because we're not there yet, but it is going to be a critical problem.
and you've taken some positive steps in that regard to going with the two-story middle school, the two-story elementary school now. So that's a positive thing. I think facilities and utilization or scheduling or things that we need to take a new look at in the 2018-19 scenario, and then but right now I'm ready to. I don't know what you have a motion. I'm ready to introduce it.
Well, we just recommend, this is a recommendation from us, but we did not give you a motion other than Jeff Reed, the attorney, staff attorney, he did actually came up with what he would have put down, but
Let me see if this meets what the committee wants to do.
do you want me to read that again?
Would you like him to read that again?
Yes.
We're change it to instead of appropriate to include in the borrowing. Because that's really what we're asking. That's correct.
You're really asking funding.
Right.
Land.
Yeah, funding, but not appropriation.
For land.
Yeah.
And this motion is to request to appropriate $10.3 million from future bond issue for the purchase of multiple school sites available to the board, subject to the board obtaining acceptable prices, terms, and inspection reports. And I would add also with regard to the board bringing each individual expenditure back to the commission for approval.
I think we have to do that anyway.
Yeah, in order to get the
Put it in the motion.
appropriation.
Just like building a building.
I'll second.
So the $10.3 million, we've got property in mind, but we're not committed to that property.
No, unless it pans out. Right. You know, after these studies, again, I wish we didn't have to do this now for more than one reason, but, you know, we normally can borrow late in the fall, but it's not advantageous for us to do that this year. So we realized that y'all did not typically meet in July. And so if we're gonna hit in the middle of August, just to simply go through the process of health and ed, budget finance, full commission, we find ourselves having to act on it more quickly. You know, yeah.
And in the event they do find land, I have not canceled the July meeting, and so we'll wait until closer to time to decide if we're gonna meet in July or if we're not gonna need to meet in July. Typically, we go ahead and cancel that, but I'm not gonna cancel it at this point.
What's the time frame that we're looking at, Lisa?
August. Oh, time frame to borrow,
Yeah.
August.
Mid-August. Well,
And that,
When will it come back to the Rutherford County Commission?
it is, to borrow is going to be the 26th.
Of
The
July?
resolution, no, of
This-
June.
Next Tuesday?
There's a lot of work that happens once y'all approve, and we're trying to get all this done and closed while this mayor is still in.
I understand that. I guess that's my thought process. Will we do anything this fall as far as approving bonds and those
No.
kinds of things?
No, you're doing it
So
Tuesday.
everything will be completed by the end of August,
Yes. Yes.
while
And-
this commission is seated and this mayor is seated?
Yes.
Okay.
Really want to get all that done before all new people take place. I mean, and only because, there is a lot of discussion that happens with rating agencies. I would hate to bring in a new person to sit in on those calls. They're familiar.
And interest rates are rising. If you're gonna borrow money, you need to get it done.
You don't have to, by the end of August, decide which pieces of land to buy.
No.
You've got
A
at least,
2-year window.
at least a 2-year window to make that happen.
But the money will be available.
The money will be available when we close, and we're really good at keeping up with how much is elementary and how much is middle. And we've already got, some calculations that, because we'll have to kind of we'll keep that money separate. I'm sure there'll be another school or something that comes up. If the money's not used for that, we'll be shifting it over to the next school, You're
I
gonna be
really
spending 10 million.
don't want to intentionally bypass the new commission and the new county mayor that's coming in. But if I were the new county mayor or a new commissioner coming in, I'd want it done before I got in office. So I think most of them would appreciate us doing that. Did you get a second?
You did?
See, I'm trying to help Mr. Spurlock.
Kelly Ready will do roll call vote.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
7 votes.
Just an FYI to you, we have now been offered some from EESI funds that the board will act on Thursday night to install more energy control modules at a 1% interest. We weren't sure we were going to get any this year. That's not something that has to be done, immediately, but we've been authorized to borrow $1 million, what is that figure?
1.2.
1.2 million, so, no increases in utilities for about 3 years, so maybe again, if we get more efficient, and this will finish up the remaining schools.
There's 15 schools involved in
And the
this.
central office and the maintenance facilities, so to be able to control air and heat there in those buildings, so that's the purpose.
I just thought of this, and it's sort of off subject, but we're borrowing money for all kinds of school purposes. And this business about security, and this study that's going on, and we don't know yet what, if anything, we're going to do.
Yeah, I can tell you something on that.
Is it going to be any substantial amount of money?
3 million. Virtually, we're gonna get roughly 2 million from the state. Some of it is recurring. A good bit of that 2 million though is a one-time thing. And we allowed us to move 1 million from our capital to that. So we're looking at projects. We can't divulge where our basic needs were, but we have spreadsheets with every school and and the central office has been evaluated based on the Homeland Security sheet, rated, and they got threat levels, and then they've got what they look at within that particular threat level. So there's a webinar Friday from the state that we'll be looking at to see how do you complete the application to get those state funds.
Well, will the $3 million do most of what you think needs to be done, or do you need more?
I'm not sure we could get all 3 million done in one year in some of it. I mean, I think there's going to be a continuing need, Mayor. I'm not sure throwing all the money up front at it is the answer.
So that's probably not enough to really do everything you think needs to be done,
I
but
think
over
you'll
time,
always-
it'll be a little bit more every year possibly.
Well, the state, though, the one-time appropriation, remember, 25 million is one-time appropriation, and 5.2 was added that will be reoccurring every year to share about 140-something school districts. So if there's pressure on the legislature to do a 25 million again next year or something, that certainly would benefit
But
us.
25 million spread across 140 schools.
But it's all, our ADM, though, we know that figure will be about $2 million. We got an
I mean,
estimate.
that's a big piece of that. That's,
Yeah, it's close to $2 million.
that's more than 10% of the money they're spreading out there.
So the money is according to attendance,
$1
not
million of
according
it's
to
coming
need.
from our capital
I
projects
understand.
fund.
Mr. Odom, is that money divvied out according to size of system or according to
It's
need?
ADM, basically.
So they're not doing an assessment on the systems, and the ones that aren't taking care of business aren't getting a pile of money. That always frustrates me.
Right.
Some places don't do it, and they say, well, we've got a glaring insufficiency
Right.
that they brought upon themselves, so.
Any more business for this committee?
I want to thank Mr. Odom and Mr. Carter for everything they've done all this year.
Let me just say that it's been very enjoyable working with all these different folks, each one of you. It's been enjoyable, you know, we all have our different personalities, and I think that kind of spices things up a little bit to make it even more enjoyable. And it also, you know, I'm sure that it teaches each one of us a little patience on different levels as we deal with everyone, from the citizens to the children to the board members and to the commissioners and everyone in the county. So this last 14 years has been, this has just been a fabulous job for me. It's matched my personality, it's matched my education level, it's challenged me, and I've been very happy here. And I just want to thank each of you for all that you've contributed to the last 14 or 15 years of my career.
Just one quick follow-up to that. I remember when you first started, and I'm not saying that you stumbled, but you had a little bit of a blank look on your face, as most of us do when we get into something that just, what the heck have I just committed myself to do? But I've seen you grow into this job in a rapid fashion to where nobody can ask you a question that you don't have a good answer for, and I appreciate that. I know you're about to retire, maybe not fully, but you're about to retire some, and you'll be on a fixed income, and I'm pretty sure that's why you haven't had a haircut in a while. We'll probably pass a hat here to see if we can.
Please do. I plan on flying out to California to get it cut. Raised enough.
With
Hawaii.
with that
Hawaii.
vest, you look a little bit Wild Bill Hickok, and that's meant to be a...
We'll know a good barber in Hawaii.
Hallelujah.
You know, what I've enjoyed is again, that all of you have been very polite to me and to us. And I know we're 70-something% of the budget, you know. Of course, I'm a taxpayer, I own some farmland and all too. So, I mean, it hits me like it does you, and you agonize over it. But I assure you, this board and these people sitting here, we wouldn't have made up that $7 million this year, like that 17 and 18. If we weren't watching where we put our pennies, where the money goes. So the county commission, the Rutherford County School Board, the taxpayers of Rutherford County really should be proud of what we've been able to do together, to be an exemplary system, to attain what we do where we're attracting people, using the money as the best way we can. That's what our debates and discussions have been. How can we do this in a reasonable financial manner that doesn't break everybody? And so far, we've done that pretty well, and I think it'll go on. I really do.
I've been around the school system since my father was elected to the school board in '72. And I remember those conversations that are being around now when the school board was suing the county commissioner, when they were at odds and bad-mouthing one another. You'd be out and my father run to a commission member and they just be at each other's throats and all. And we've gotten away from that over the years, and the last 15 or 20 years, especially the last 7 or 8, have been really good working. And I hope I'm leaving, some of y'all are leaving, Mr. Spurlock, new commissioners, and new county mayor, if he haven't been watching on TV, I hope that relationship can continue. We don't need to digress back to where it was in the past, when you didn't have the trust level. We passed, I mentioned this at the joint meeting, we passed the school board's budget in an hour or something like that, looking over it. And in years past, it would have taken days because there wasn't a trust level. And we got all the different tiers at some points in time. No offense, Mr. Sanders. And different
Some
things,
commissioners wanted
but I'm repeating stuff I've said before, but I hope that relationship can continue into the future.
Appreciate working with you all. Look forward to working with some of you again. And we have, I think the county commission and the school board work really good together. I don't want to go back to the old days.
I would just like to say one thing. You must have called me the second day I was here when I opened up those 10 file cabinets at work. And all the paperwork from the last 10 years had just been stacked in there. In no particular order or whatever, just to get it off the desk. So, that is a little startling.
As we've grown, you've continued to grow and mature in the job and stay ahead of the curve. And it's been a pleasure working with you.
You too.
Great job.
Thank you. We appreciate you. And feel free to visit any future meetings you've been here to attend. All right, if there's no more business, we are adjourned.
Thank you.